All right, it's that time of the week, time for Snap Tackle Pod. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Mick Schaffer of KSHB 41 Sports. He is Dion Clisso of PrepsKC. We are talking high school football in the Kansas City metro area. What do we got? Smithville?
This is Smithville, probably circa 2012. When
They got a new logo?
They still have the S. They use I think this is pretty much the S they have now, and they have the the arrow, like the Florida State uses that arrow through sometimes, and Florida State does as well too. So that's kind of their look now. They've had the kind of the same logo like that for a while, and we did 2 minutes on my Virginia hat last week, so I figured I'd dip.
We go longer on Smithville.
Yeah, we go longer on Smithville.
You're going to break out the Mill Valley hat that I gave you.
Well, they played Free State this week. Maybe that's might be their biggest test the rest of the way. I mean,
well, they got Lake the West.
Oh, Lake the West is good. Yeah, good win by them. Jeez, but
we'll talk about that.
Yeah, no, Smithville, big win for them last week against Platte County, and I think that they showed that they're legit. They're ranked number 1 in the state. I think they're the favorite, and if they can continue what they're doing, it's going to be a fun year in Smithville. The funny thing is they were so close last year. And I don't think people remember they had Jeff City Elias beat and gave up 2 big pass plays over the middle and got down and gave up a touchdown right there at the end. So no, that was a junior laden team that brought back 19 starters motivated. So much like as we sit here on September 30th doing this, which is a magical day in Royals history, much like that 2015 team that came back, Smithville is not just happy to get to the semis and lose.
Right.
I think they're pretty motivated to go on this year.
Okay. Yeah. The Smithville last year was like the Royals 2014.
Yeah.
All the way to Game 7. Who else is the competition in Class 4 for them?
Well, locally, this is, Lincoln Prep's having a good season, and we'll find out more about them here in the next couple of weeks. They got Pembroke Hill this week. They got Maryville coming up. There are good teams out there. I think Harrisonville has been Jekyll and Hyde for them. Excelsior Springs goes down and gets a good win against them. So those are the teams that they're going to have to navigate to get out of town. And then, there's West Plains, plays down there on the lake kind of area down there. They're really good. So, it's Webb City and Platte County are up at 5. So it's a different landscape in 4. Elias has got off to a slow start. They're still okay. I just think that Smithville's kind of head and shoulders above everybody right now, and I think they'll prove it as they go through the rest of their schedule.
Yeah, big win last week for Smithville. We're going to talk about that. Other wins on the Missouri side that jumped out and got you from last week.
Well, I thought Rockhurst beat Miege. That was a good game, and I talked to Kelly Donahoe from our radio show, and he said they had the ball 36 minutes. And Joe Leggio, their outstanding now tailback, they moved him to tailback. He was their fullback, and he's a man. He's like 6'1", 240 pounds, 42 carries. And Kelly's like, I don't know if I've ever given the ball to anybody 42 times. I was like, no, he never gave Dallin Warmack the ball that many times. That's a back-to-back Simone winner. So, Leggio, and he told me, he said, he goes, we weren't planning on using him. Then our guy got dinged up, and Joe's not the fastest guy. And I'm like, well, it doesn't matter if you can't tackle him until at least 6 yards down the field. I mean, that's what they did. They just lined it up. They're getting a little healthier. They're getting their quarterback back. I mean, they got a quarterback back last week. They're getting the original tailback back, and I think he may play some receiver. And so no, Rock is starting to round into form. And so that was one that kind of opened my eyes a little bit. And Miege, I think, is like St. James. Their schedule was just so loaded that even a 20, a 3-point loss to Rock is almost. Yeah, says a lot about them. I mean, they played pretty well in that game.
Yeah, St. James got another tough one this week, but at St. Pius.
Yeah.
Miege got another tough. I mean, you could feasibly have those two go to the playoffs with a combined, 2 or 3 wins.
Yeah, easily.
Yet still just kind of then make a run at that point.
Well, Miege is going to play Blue Valley West team that came across and beat Raytown last week.
Yeah.
I think, it's easy when you got Blue Valley North and Northwest, and even, like Blue Valley and Blue Valley West are good football teams. I mean,
they're just kind of overshadowed this year by Blue Valley North and Northwest.
Yeah, and they're all going to have to play each other so that it'll all shake out. But I think Blue Valley West is a little different team than what the other in terms of offense and how they play. They play more of a physical run the ball type game, and they've got good quarterback and play as well, and they're good there. So that they're more built like a Missouri team in terms of we want to run the ball, we want to establish that and pass off of that, and not as much as the spread teams like the Blue Valley North or the Blue Valley Northwest. The Blue Valley Northwest is Mikey Pauley. Their offense is kind of multiple because he runs the ball well too. They run the ball well too. Grant Stubblefield's a great tailback for them.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit. Let's stay on the Missouri side before we jump back over to Kansas. Odessa. They keep winning, but they've had a couple close ones here against a couple rivals. And I'm looking a couple weeks down the road with that center matchup. How big would that one be?
Yeah, and center is going to play Harrisonville this week on Saturday because they had to sit out because of COVID. I'm not predicting a loss coming down the line here, but it's getting tougher for Odessa the rest of the way out. And I think their depth or lack of depth is being challenged. They lost their quarterback to a broken leg, I'm assuming, is for the season. They'd have to play deep probably to get him back. I don't know how bad it was broken. I think he was in a boot when I saw him, because when they won the game against Oak Grove, I got pictures from the person who sends me pictures and video from Odessa, and they were all around him, and he was sitting in a wheelchair, but he had a boot on, so it wasn't cast. So I don't know. Maybe that was waiting for swelling to go down, or they put. You never know. I mean, these days, a boot could mean you're done for forever. I mean, heck, Salvi slipped down the stairs, and then he turns around and comes out and takes that bat. So who knows? It's stairs are not good for Salvi. That should be a whole other podcast.
We've learned that.
Yeah, he blew.
Somebody was sitting in the crown seats, and they sent me a picture of like a chipped off piece of the stair, asking, was this the culprit, and how long before this thing's fixed?
Well, they're not just concrete, aren't they? Covered like in a.
They have a little padding, like a foamy kind of padding.
Yeah, because I would think when I saw that, I'm like,
spikes hitting those things. You want something to absorb those spikes.
Yeah, because the spikes on concrete, you might as well be on skates. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, and so I didn't see the home run. I was alerted by text as I was working to flip, and I'd forgotten to flip over. We won't say what I was watching. It was a show with people who sing and you don't know who they are. I wonder what that my son is emotionally invested in, and so it's one of the family things we can do. So we were watching that, but no, it's definitely what we're talking. We're talking about high school football before that. We're talking about Odessa and the kid who's hurt. So they've got a good running game. Blake Heitman's outstanding tailback. Sean Bader's another one. They've got good running backs. Their defense is what's been the thing the last few weeks. They've given up more points than they've given up in a long time. And let's not forget, Oak Grove's not a bad team. Their record doesn't look good. They've played a pretty tough schedule. Pleasant Hill is a much improved team. So you're also talking about teams that have been beaten by this Odessa team nonstop for 4 years, that if they smell a little blood in the water, that heightens their abilities to stay focused. So no, I think Odessa is a team to keep an eye on. 3 is wide open in Missouri. Blair Oaks was defending champion. They lose to Boonville, who Pleasant Hill beat the first week of the season. St. Pius is the one who's rolling along and dominating the teams they need to dominate. They beat Maryville 14-13. People are like, well, Maryville's not that good. And I'm like, no, Maryville's still pretty good. They lost to Blair Oaks in week 1. They lost to Harrisonville in a close game, one score game, and had the ball at the end. So, I think St. Pius, as much as anybody, has proven it. That's why the St. James game for them is going to be a big test, because that's the type of team they're going to need to beat if they go beyond the districts. And
I imagine St. James probably a little bit bigger than
they've
St.
got
Pius.
Yeah, they probably have a little bit more
Class 2, but usually kind of Missouri Class 2 is more like a 3A school in Kansas size-wise.
Yeah, so it'll be, this is the second year for Coach Simone. So, he's got his new weight program he put in. They're probably 2 or 3 years away from being where he wants them to be weight room wise. If you've ever seen, they got the state championship game, but in terms of like just size, now that they could have that size. They had good size players last year, but you really want to. That's the hallmark of the pro, and you know how it is, and that's the hallmark of programs that continually win, is where the weight room is really good, because you can have runs where you don't have skill guys, but if you've got a weight room that's rolling, you always are good up front, and that'll carry you through the years. That have the good the good skill guys between those good skill guys.
Last week was the week of the overtime 2-point conversion. I call it, right, especially in the Blue Valley district. You had Blue Valley taking on St. Thomas Aquinas. They convert their 2-point
Mm-hmm.
conversion on a wild, amazing play by Holbert, their quarterback, where he looked like he was going to be stopped 15 yards from the goal line. Instead, he weaves his way through traffic and scores and wins the game. And then you have Blue Valley North going for it against Lee Summit North, not converting that. Those are two wild finishes and great games, I thought.
Well, and the touchdown to get to that 2-point conversion was somewhat questionable.
We're seeing it in high school. High school doesn't have the burden of proof to make a catch that you do in college and the NFL, and they're calling it the correct way. But we're just so used to seeing that in college and pro, where you have to do check off all these boxes before you make the catch. No, if you come down in high school, you got it for a split second, your feet hit the ground, they're going to call it a catch.
Yeah, and Ryan Wallace, who covered the game for us, he said he was beside two photographers who had pictures that did not agree with
the defense is celebrating, right? Just like it was last week in the Miege Aquinas game. The offense is upset, yet they still call the touchdown.
Yeah, so no, and you know, like you said, we're not down on the officials. I'm not asking the official to be perfect on that call every time, as opposed to a guy who's got a giant lens and a $2,000 camera who can slow it down to every frame. You know, that's one of those deals. But no, I thought the Blue Valley North game said a lot about both Lee Summit North and Blue Valley North. I mean, Lee Summit North got down in that game, and they've got a history when they get down. Sometimes they have a hard time coming back, and they came back and they really played well with some adversity in the second half. And
the Baker kid of Simone, candidate,
you know, he's kind of working his way in there. He's you know, it's going to be interesting because there's so many quarterbacks that are having good years this year, and he's one of them. And they're a really good team, and I think what makes them good is that they are balanced in what they do in terms of, you know, offense and defense and things like that. So that's, you know, the Mikey Pauly, you know, run for 100, throw for 200, or Henry Martin, I'm going to throw you 350 and at least 3 TDs every week. Is the one that, you know, because I mean, you know, Henry Martin's on pace for 3,000 yards and
unreal,
you know, 40 some touchdowns. I mean, you know, and they've got a chance to go deep. And you know, so does Blue Valley
Northwest. Playoff games. I think he's well past that.
and you know, Lee Summit North, I think Trey Baker has done a good job of keeping that offense, and that's what Coach Mosey said. He does a great job of being poised back there and making plays and getting things in the right position. You know, Lee Summit North is got a hill to climb. They still have not really ever gotten over that hump. They've never really won a district title. They've never won a district title since this format. You know, and I think they're more equipped than they were 3 years ago when they got to the district championship game against Rockhurst. And, you know, Christian Carter got hurt and they were without him, and Rockhurst, the team that probably wasn't as good as they were, beat them. And so this is a big test for them, you know, because they'll be in a district with Ray Peck and, you know, it's going to be in Lee Summit West, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them to get out. You know, Joplin's not bad. That's in that district too. Nix is okay. I mean, I think that the Lee Summit North and Ray Peck are better than them. Ray Peck's the one that, if they get their offense figured out and they can find a way to get Jaden Doss involved more, they're going to be dangerous because their defense is really good. That's the situation there. But no, I think a good one for Lee Summit North, and I think next week we'll be talking a lot about Lee Summit North as they play Liberty North and what could be the
Clash the Titans right there. Maybe
could be a state championship preview. They go to opposite sides of the bracket.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah. I mean, Lee Summit North would have the tougher road because they match up with the CBC Smet Kirkwood bracket, whereas the Liberty North side matches up with the, let's just say, not quite as good side of St. Louis.
All right, let's talk about it. The biggest win in Olathe West Owls history last week, taking down Olathe North, and not just a kind of a fluky 1-point win. They were shutting them out till the game's final moments.
Yeah, no, and I was keeping an eye on that all night, and you know, watched a little bit of the stream after it was over, and they just dominated. Their defense turned them over, and you know, that's one thing about Olathe North, though they are. I mean, Noah Palmer, they're doing a better job of throwing the ball. They just struggled to come back in that game, and they didn't really mount that much of an attack until that last drive, and that made it 20-6.
It's those teams like, you know, the ones that are so dominant, you know, running the ball. If you can get ahead of them by two or more scores, it's harder for them to come back because their drives might take 8 minutes to get to the end zone.
And I was just impressed with Olathe West and their defense and what they did. And Olathe North got off of that really nice start, and they were just pounding teams. But then you look and you go, they maybe pounded some teams that weren't very good.
Yeah.
They play Free State, and it's a 21-7 game. It's a closer game, and then they play Olathe West and get down early, and just can't get back into it. And Olathe West had a wide receiver reverse throwback to the quarterback touchdown. That was their second touchdown in the game, which is a great play call, because it was like third and goal from the 10 or something like that, and they run that. It was it's fantastic. And Mason McGavern, their quarterback, that's a guy who's starting to put up some numbers and is a dual threat guy along with Anthony Fabro. It's like you have to figure out which one you want to stop from running, because teams have boxed up and said, we're going to box up Fabro, and McGavern's gone for 200 yards rushing as a quarterback. So
I have to, each week I have to double check. Wait, he is the quarterback, right? Because he just puts up insane rushing numbers. Yeah,
no, and he's a great dual threat guy. And I tell you that
they probably want that week 1 game against Olathe Northwest back right now.
Yeah, Olathe Northwest is a better team, and I think that they probably got into a closer game than they thought they were going to get into. And Olathe Northwest won it at the end. It was tied, and I think they got a late touchdown. And
they were down big to the Shawnee Mission Northwest, and then it's almost like right then they flipped the switch, and they've been just rolling teams, scoring points, and playing defense ever since.
And that Shawnee Mission Northwest win looks better and better every week too, because now now that Blake Reeder is like kind of got himself under, got his feet under him in the quarterback position. He was a great receiver for him last year with Ty Black, and then Malik Otis, their tailback. Had a crazy touchdown run against Shawnee Mission, or catch and run against Shawnee Mission Northwest last week. Broke like 7 tackles, and I was watching the web stream, and I do a little thing called Saturday Sound Podcast where I get some audio highlights, and I always like to throw in some of the high school kids where I can, because a lot of them lose their mind, and it's hilarious. And this kid from Shawnee Mission Northwest is just losing it. So if you get a chance, go out and check out that podcast. We get some good sound out there. And it's Shawnee Mission Northwest. They've got a game with Lawrence this week, and Bo Black can coach it. I mean, the group that came through was his kids group, was a good group of players, but Shawnee Mission Northwest has always had good players, and has always been, in terms of the Shawnee Mission district, when they're doing well, the most participation. I mean, they always had more people on the sidelines than any other, even when Shawnee Mission West and Shawnee Mission East were winning state championships. Northwest had more players. So that's another 6A. 6A is like, you look at Blue Valley North and Blue Valley Northwest, because they kind of jump off the page at you. Then you go, oh, Blue Valley West, Olathe West, Olathe North, Shawnee Mission Northwest. Well, we're 7 down now, and we're not even talking about Free State and Lawrence who go to the other side.
They'll be West, yeah.
So that's what I'm saying, and I think Free State and Lawrence are both very good, solid football teams. So I don't know if there's a great team. I don't know if there's a team that beats Derby, but Adam Pummel texted me and said that the Lee Summit North was the best team that he had faced since they'd been there, and that includes Derby.
Yeah, I believe it. All right, let's get to the Remax Big 3 on the Kansas side. You talked about it, Lawrence and Shawnee Mission Northwest. I think that'll be a real good game.
Well, and it's a great matchup game, because Shawnee Mission Northwest, they love to throw it, but Reeder does a good job of it. The running game is kind of quarterback driven, a lot like it was last year with Ty Black. But Malik Otis, he's got like 100-yard rushing too. So they've done a great job with that. And they're matching up against Lawrence, who has a good defense, like good special teams, and they've got good D-backs. So it's a great matchup of the strength versus strength there. No Devin Neal running the ball, so they aren't quite as dynamic as they were offensively the last few years. But Coach Bowen, you saw him last week. I mean, that's a good, solid football team.
I mean, it's a monster offensive line. They average like 290, right? And so an outstanding receiver in Baylor Bowen as well, and a quarterback that is, and a lot of these Sunflower quarterbacks are just probably the best athletes in the school, right? They can throw the ball, but really dangerous running it as well. That's Jules Gard, the quarterback. So, and they play some defense. And so, that'll be for a Shawnee Mission Northwest team that likes to get a lot of possessions, right? Throw the ball up and down the field. I think that's going to be a great game. What about DeSoto at Spring Hill? That's a sneaky great game in Kansas City this week.
If you haven't been paying attention to Spring Hill, it's time to start paying attention to Spring Hill in 5A. And as someone who has a child I know you're paying attention to Spring Hill.
Well, I mean, their last loss was Mill Valley last year in the playoffs. And then that was a junior-laden team. They've come back, and, they've kind of whipped up on the Frontier League so far.
Yeah, and DeSoto, who had, a rough game And when their only loss, they didn't look very good against Baser, but Baser's pretty good.
Southwest.
Southwest.
Yep.
US Southwest. They got they bounced back and got a good win. And I think they're going to be getting better as the season goes on because they're kind of young. And this is a game that they kept. They were old Frontier League teams. They kept it on their schedule, which was good for both teams, especially with Spring Hill moving up to 5A. It was a good tester for them. And no, it's definitely a good game for both teams. I like Spring Hill a lot. I think if they don't lose this game, I don't think they're losing the rest of the regular season. I think they're going to take care of the Frontier League. It'll be their first Frontier League title since 2015. I thought it was back in 1990. It was not. When I interviewed Coach Feedback, he said, no, we got a piece of it in 2015. Nice. But before that, I think it was all the way. They had like an undefeated regular season in like 1990. There were some really good Spring Hill teams around the late 80s, early 90s. And so this is definitely one of their best teams. Fletcher Pankey, their quarterback's really good, but their defense is really good. That's the other thing too. They're not letting you score any points. So
somehow Baser and DeSoto don't play each other this year in the same conference, United Kansas Conference.
Well, that was the game they had to cancel on.
Oh, is that why? Okay, that makes sense. Because I'm looking at the schedule now. I'm like, how's that possible? Makes sense. But Baser's undefeated at 4-0. They're on your Remax Big 3 games hosting Shawnee Heights this week.
Well, and Shawnee Heights is a team that lost their first 3 games by a combined 11 points. They go to Schlegel, they outman them. Jason Swift's been there for a long time. When they've got some players, they're pretty good. I can remember them knocking out. Did they knock out of St. James out of the playoffs when they were in 5A a few years ago, like a decade ago? Maybe even the game maybe the first or second year the Mill Valley played it. Maybe I'm not remembering. I think Shawnee Heights has beaten some teams in the postseason, and now that they're in that UKC, that helps them a lot out of not being in that Centennial League. So they are definitely a team to keep an eye on, and they've gotten some confidence, and it's a thing that you talk to Coach Stahlbaumer. He's like, no, I had to tell my kids, don't look. The record is not that they're not that's a 1-3 team that was in all 3 of those losses. They could easily be 4-0. So Baser's defense is really the thing that's done well for them. Zach Sizemore, their tailback's been great, and their quarterback is playing real well. He's really settled in to his spot. So I think Baser's good enough to win a 4A state title. This is a good test for them, a focus test, that they have to go through to kind of keep things moving for them.
Yeah. Over like on the Missouri side, Remax Big 3 games, Rockhurst taking on Lee's Summit West. This game is at Rockhurst.
Yes.
And this will be a good one.
Well, and Lee Summit West finally beat him first time last year.
Yeah.
And that was a big one. Rock's getting healthy. They're kind of figuring out who they are. They have a really good sophomore class, and some of those guys are playing. So that as every game goes on, and you know how it is, sophomores are sophomores at the beginning of the year, but by the end of the year, it's a big jump. Sophomore to junior is usually the big jump, and if you're able to get some time as a sophomore, you make so much more of an impact at the end of that season, and then definitely into your junior season. So I think this is a good game for both these teams. Rock's won 2 in a row. They have that not bad. They have an overtime loss to Park Hill. They could easily be 3-2 with a loss to Ray Peck, which they made that game close. I mean, they're not what they want to be yet, and they're getting there. But this is a good test for both these teams. Yeah.
Our game of the week at KSHB 41 is going to be Park Hill at Liberty North. That's, of course, one of your Remax Big 3 games. A Park Hill team. Well, both these teams lost in week 1 and have not lost since. And Park Hill lost to Lee Summit West. This one's at Liberty North. Just kind of another test for the Eagles to maybe put that stamp on their moniker as maybe being the best team in the city.
Yeah, and their defense will be tested. Andy Sims does a great job of calling offense and getting guys in position. Kendrick Bell, this is quarterback, and that name might sound familiar to you. It's one of Ronnie Bell's little brothers.
Yep.
And he threw for 400 yards last week and 4 touchdowns at Lee Summit. So they're getting better. Andy's not. He's like, we need to get a lot better. But that they really have, after that first loss, turned it around and taken care of the teams they needed to take care of. I mean, that's a lot for especially a new coaching staff to be able to get to that point where you're beating the teams you should beat. And that's a good thing for them. I think they're probably a year or 2 away, but this is a good test to see where they're at. And if you're Liberty North, you cannot get caught looking at Lee Summit North the next week. You've got to be focused and ready to play this game, because the Park Hill team, any team that can score and has, good athletic players, which Park Hill does, they have good skill players. You find yourself in a dogfight. You give up a couple, touchdowns that you don't think you're going to give up. And while Liberty North can score on anybody, they like to run the ball and do things like that. That makes it harder to come. You don't want to start coming from behind if you're Liberty North. You want to be able to come out and handle what you need to handle.
All right. Last but not least, Lincoln Prep going to Pembroke Hill. I haven't seen the Raiders this year. What do you make of this matchup?
Had tough losses to St. Pius in the first week, and then Richmond hung when they were hanging 50 on everybody. Hung 50 on Pembroke Hill, but they bounced back last week and had a huge game against a decent University Academy team. And so they're playing probably their best football right now. Lincoln Prep just keeps checking the boxes. I mean, their schedule, they were able to flip their schedule with East. They got Cardinal Ritter a couple weeks ago and beat them. That's a huge statement win for their program. Yeah. This is kind of the beginning of their stretch where they'll play Pembroke Hill, they'll play Maryville, they'll take a week off, and then play Center, a new game that was just announced. They had an opening with Southeast ending their season, and Center had an opening because Clinton didn't play varsity season, so they're going to play. They are huge rivals in everything they do, and they don't get to play football that much against each other. So Lincoln Prep is at a spot where they need to kind of take care of their business and handle what they have. And Pembroke Hill will be a good test because it's a well-coached team. Quentin Conley was a good player for them, receiver type. So yeah, it's definitely a situation for Lincoln Prep that this is a big test for them right here. And they've passed them all. This is not the Lincoln Prep team a couple years ago with all they've still got good players, but the flashy names that everybody was seeing recruiting. This is more of a basic team. They got good offensive line. They run the ball. They play good defense. It's just kind of a maybe a more mature version of what they had a few years ago. So
it works. Hey, it works. All right, that'll do it. Anything else on your mind?
That's about it, man. I said we'll hopefully have some exciting news around Simone Awards here in a couple of weeks. There's going to be some revamped new website's going to launch and some new content, and it's about that time. The first Simone meeting is coming up, and we're getting down to the beginning of the end of the regular season, and you'll start to see that kind of stuff. So yeah, no, it doesn't seem like it should be last of September, 1st of October, but before we know it, we're talking playoff football.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Dion, I appreciate the time. Thanks to you for watching or listening as well. I'm Mick Schaffer for Dion Clisso. We'll see you next time right here on Snap Tackle Pod.